I'll recommend you start out by resetting the settings on your camera to the default settings. That way, we'll be on the same page when we try the exercises. It may be easiest to place your camera in P mode using the mode dial before trying this. We'll talk in depth about the mode dial later in this class. Once in P mode, push the menu button and use the left and right arrows to navigate until you see Clear Settings. Use the down arrow to highlight that text and then push the Set button. Scroll down to highlight Clear All Camera Settings and press Set again. Now that we've done that, let's get started. For our first exercise, you're going to take 3 images, and I want you to make the framing of the images exactly the same. We're going to be changing a setting between the 3 images, and I don't want you to move or zoom between the 3 shots, since I really want to isolate how exactly the setting is impacting what your images look like. The setting we'll be changing is called the exposure compensation setting, which I'll be explaining fully after we do the exercise. You can change that setting by putting your camera into P mode, if you haven't already. You can do this by spinning the mode dial on top of your camera. Once you've done that, hold down the button with the plus over the minus symbol on it. And while you're holding that down, spin the dial on top of your camera near the shutter button. The shutter button, in case you're not aware, is the button you use to take a picture. Look on the camera's display, either on top of your camera, on the screen on the back, or in the viewfinder, and you should see the setting changing. By changing this setting, you'll take the first picture with the setting at 0, which is the default setting, so your camera is most likely already set to 0. For the second picture, change the setting to -2.0, and then take exactly the same picture again. For the third picture, change the setting to +2.0, and take your third image of the same scene. Make sure your flash is turned off for this exercise. You'll know your flash is off as long as it's not popped up. Remember not to change the framing of your image between shots. Pause this video now and go do the exercise. Welcome back. You should see a difference between the 3 images. Here's an example of 3 images I took doing exactly the same thing so you can compare. If your images are blurry, then you're most likely taking the pictures indoors with relatively little light to work with. Try the exercise again when you're in a brighter environment, like outside during the day. Here are the 3 examples again that I created using 0, -2.0, and +2.0. Do your images look similar? If at this point you're not happy with the scene you chose to shoot, pause this video again and try the exercise with a different scene. In fact, you can try it as many times as you want. Now I want you to take one set of 3 images you shot and take a look at them. I'm going to imagine that you have in mind at least one word that describes the differences between the 3 shots. The main point of this class, however, is that I want you to start seeing your images in a more sophisticated way, much like a professional photographer would. So I'll ask you to look at your images again, this time more closely, and find at least 3 differences between the images. If you don't like the images you created for yourself, you can use my images. What do you see that is different between the images? Pause the video for as long as it takes for you to really see at least 3 differences between the 3 images. Welcome back. Now that you've had a chance to look for yourself, let me ask you some questions. Can you see in the 3 images you created that the setting we changed impacts the brightness of your images? Can you see the setting we changed impacts the colors between the images? Can you see that the setting we changed impacts the detail or clarity of the various objects in your image? Does the setting we changed impact the mood of the image? Does the setting we changed impact where the viewer's eye travels in the image? With this setting, all we did was adjust how much light came into the camera. The setting is so simple, more or less light, but what we can see is that the amount of light coming into the camera actually impacts a lot of visual elements in our images. the brightness, the colors, the detail or clarity, the mood, and where the viewer's eye travels. You may have seen things that I haven't even mentioned. In my first photography class as a student, I heard a statement which confused me. It really got my gears spinning. I want this statement to make sense to you by the end of this class. That statement is, photography is light. What do I mean by that? Painters paint with paint, writers write with words, photographers document, record, manipulate, and play with light. Light is our medium. If you don't have light, you don't have an image. So this class will largely be about how your camera manipulates light and then what you can do as the photographer to make choices about how your camera manipulates that light so you can have creative control over how your images turn out. Here's another example from my own life when I used this particular setting. I shot this image in automatic mode. What that means is that my camera chose all of the settings for me in this shot. Nothing was up to me. As soon as I took the image, I looked at it on the back of my camera. I thought to myself, this is a decent shot. There are things I liked about it. I liked the shape of the tree and the kids playing in the snow. There was one thing about this image I did not like. So in order to change what I didn't like, I used the exposure compensation feature, the feature we were just playing with. I changed my setting to plus 2.0 and took the picture again. Here was the result. There's no right answer to the question I'm about to ask you, so don't answer what you think I'm looking for. Answer what your actual preference is. Which of these two is your favorite? I'm going to give you a moment to let you choose which one you like better. Remember, I said there's no right or wrong answer to that question. On that particular day, I preferred the brighter version because when I was walking by this scene, what caught my eye was the blindingly white snow. When I took the picture, my intention was to capture that snow being white, and shooting in auto didn't achieve that goal for me. Had you asked me on a different day, I might have said that I preferred the darker of the two images, maybe because the sky is bluer, or maybe because there's more texture in the clouds and snow. I don't see any of those things in the brighter version of the image. What I want to explain to you is why my camera gave me what it gave me in automatic mode. Why didn't my camera give me something brighter? Why didn't my camera give me something darker? Imagine for a moment that we had 5 people standing in front of this exact scene on the day I took these pictures. Imagine we had all different kinds of cameras. One person has a digital SLR, one person has a point and shoot, one person has a film camera, one person has a cell phone camera, and one person has a $30,000 medium format camera. Here's the thing. If we had all been standing next to each other in front of this scene, and had we all taken a picture of this scene, every single camera would have given us exactly the same result in terms of brightness. The colors might have looked a little different, and the contrast might have looked a little different between the cameras, but in terms of the brightness of the images, every single camera, no matter what brand or size of camera, would have given us exactly the same result. Why is this? Ever since the 1930s, the same system for measuring light has existed in every camera that's ever been made. Film cameras, digital cameras, even cell phone cameras all use that same system. I'm going to explain how that system works. As I explain this, most of you watching will want to try to memorize what I'm explaining. I'll invite you to set that aside and just simply understand the concept. How your camera measures light is all based on this one very simple concept called middle gray. If you have a tonal scale from pure white to pure black, middle gray is exactly 50% between them. I want you to put a pin in that concept, since it will come in handy in a moment. Every time you point your camera at a scene, that scene has a definable top, bottom, left, and right. Your camera knows what you can see through your viewfinder, and in that scene, your camera finds the average tone. Let me explain what I mean by that. Between these two images, the brighter one more closely matches what I saw with my own 2 eyes. That snow was actually white. I pointed my camera at this scene, and the camera found the average tone. The average tone in this image is right about here. The camera then takes that average and lets in just enough light to the camera so that that average tone ends up looking just like middle gray, which is why when I shot this scene in automatic shooting mode, the camera made my white snow look gray. Another way of saying this is that your camera is always going to middle gray when it shoots in the automatic shooting mode. Now remember, the intention of this class isn't to memorize. What I've just explained is a perfect example of why memorizing isn't necessary. I didn't give you that concept so that you can explain it to other people. I explained it to you so that from this point forward, you'll have a different experience when using your camera. Up until this point, you've probably taken quite a few images with your camera, and when you look at the resulting images, you notice that sometimes the faces in your images are darker than you'd like. Sometimes you notice that the sunset did not come out the way you wanted it to. Your first thought has probably been, I paid $1,200 for this camera. Now, instead, you'll think to yourself, oh, that's the middle gray thing JP was telling me about. It might have seemed like your camera has been giving you random results, but now you'll start to see that your camera in the automatic shooting mode does exactly the same thing every single time you take a picture. In the automatic shooting mode, the amount of light coming into the camera is never arbitrary. Your camera is very mathematical, accurate, and precise. Now, when your camera gives you a result in the automatic shooting mode, you'll know why you're getting what you're getting, and if you want to change it, you'll know how. Let's talk about sunsets. Sunsets are such a great example of how you can approach your photography more intuitively than you have before. Have you ever had a situation where you see the most amazing sunset with your own two eyes, but your picture of that sunset comes out with no actual sunset in it? It used to happen to me all the time. Whenever that happens, the problem is really simple. I'm going to throw out some lingo here and then I'll explain it. When your sunset doesn't come out the way you want it to, it's because you did not expose for the sky properly. What do I mean by that? Whenever we use the word expose as a verb in reference to a part of the image, we're talking about letting in the right amount of light into the camera so that that part of the image comes out looking the way you want it to. If we look at the two pictures again of the snow-covered hill, we could say that in the image on the left, I exposed for the sky. In the image on the right, I exposed for the snow. So when your sunset didn't come out, you simply didn't let in the right amount of light into the camera, and the simple solution is to let in either more or less light. I know that most of you watching this video right now are thinking, well, which is it? Do I let in more or less light? If you're thinking that, then you're memorizing, and I want to encourage you to cut that out. Let's say you're standing in front of that gorgeous sunset. The first step should be to take a picture. Don't worry about the settings on your camera and just take a picture. Then, look at the picture on the back of your camera and decide what to do next. So let's say you're standing in front of a sunset and you see with your own two eyes the most amazing, gorgeous reds and oranges, and you take a picture. In the resulting image, in the sky portion of the frame, instead of the reds and oranges, you see something closer to black. You know that you need to take the picture again and go brighter. Now say you're standing on another beach, on another vacation, and you see another gorgeous, beautiful sunset with reds and oranges, and you take the picture. On the back of your camera in the sky portion of the frame, rather than reds and oranges, you see something closer to white. You know that you need to take the picture again and go darker. So really, there's nothing to memorize. First step, take a picture. Second step, use that picture as your guide. If there's nothing to change, then you're all set. If you see how the image would benefit from being brighter or darker, you'll now know how to change it.